Welcome to our 30-minute webinar. This is Jim Schultens, and I'm joined by Matt Sykes. We're a couple system engineers over here at Variphy. For today's webinar, we're going to talk about the new auto user provisioning feature that will be available in version 12.3, which is due to be released very soon. We're going to start off with a quick overview of our company and what we do. We'll jump into a live demo where Matt will guide us through the new auto user provisioning feature. We'll pause for Q&A and get some of your questions answered. During the demo, if you do have any questions, make sure to ask them in the Q&A panel in the bottom right of the screen. After Q&A, we will reward one lucky attendee with a $50 Amazon gift card. Stick around to see if you've won. Variphy is the preferred analytics and management solution for Cisco collaboration. We provide industry-leading CDR reporting and call analytics, customizable dashboards and widgets, UCCX contact center reporting and wallboarding, Ninja managed consulting services, and our new Cisco Cube reporting, remote phone control, change management, and dial plan management. But today we're going to focus on auto user provisioning. If you have any other questions regarding any of these other features, we can certainly take them offline and get those answered. One more thing before we get into the wild, Variphy has a managed consulting service that is available to our customers. Variphy's SE team will be engaged on a one-on-one basis to remotely provide additional consulting, unassisted reporting, dashboarding, configuration, and system monitoring assistance. This is a service that provides a dedicated Variphy SE to do the heavy lifting so you don't have to. For more information, please contact us and we'd be happy to speak with you more in depth about the service. All right, let's get into the demo. Matt, you ready to lead us into the wild?
I'm ready to rock and roll, Jim.
All right, let me get you over center.
Just don't play the video again. All right, looks like I've got it here. Okay, let me share my screen and get that WebEx header out of the way. All right, good day all. This is Matt with Variphy once again. Thank you for setting the table for me, Jim. This week, yes, we are going to be looking at auto user provisioning within Variphy's brand new 12.3, due out actually tomorrow. We're saying week's end, but so Friday by the latest, but should be out by tomorrow. I'm taking everyone's eyes right now to our products page. So underneath the products page, we do have a what's new, and that's just why I want to comb through this real briefly here. This is where you can always find out what is currently contained within the GA or the general availability release of our software, as well as certainly what's shipping soon or upcoming. Definitely 12.3 has a lot of attention around it, including Cube support, all the other new bells and whistles for CCX, as well as some other enhanced support. But today we're looking at auto user provisioning. So I just want everyone to take a quick little peek at this. This is what we're going to be covering in today's webinar. So certainly we can see here at the setup and administration page that we have that we'll take everyone through a couple different times. Some of the prerequisites I do want to mention is we definitely need to have either one or the other, either a SAML SSO configuration or an Active Directory configuration set up on user groups obviously to allow the auto provisioning of users into the application. So we're going to take a spin through that right now. So I've got a couple labs loaded up here that we're going to take a quick peek at. I'm going to look at my own personal lab here real briefly. I do have this configured right now for Active Directory. We'll take a look at that in a moment. Definitely want to make mention of obviously those prereqs of needing a SAML SSO or single sign-on authentication definition or an Active Directory server. Certainly, please do know that we have articles built out for SAML and for our AD configurations, excuse me. So within the verified knowledge base, I'm simply searching SAML, and I have three options for KB articles here. So SAML with Google, SAML with AD, and Okta as well. So certainly feel free to go ahead and read through those. One of the labs I will be entertaining on this session today will be utilizing SAML with Google in one of our Variphy lab environments. So certainly feel free to go ahead and view these. Also, we do have webinars on some SAML configurations as well. So don't ever sell the webinar videos short. So in the webinar section of our website here, you can certainly replay or watch the previously recorded videos where I think Danimal went over the configurations for Azure and Okta. But certainly if there's any questions or need of assistance with that configuration, support at Verify will always be there to assist you. But yeah, that is the SAML, I guess, KBs. We also, once again, have the Active Directory, knowledge base articles, configuring AD servers within Verify. Certainly you can have more than one. For the auto user provisioning, we will need one specifically tied to a group, and we're going to run through all of that right now. So I just want to make everyone aware of these knowledge base articles that we already have on our KBs, in our KBs, excuse me. So certainly feel free to go ahead and use those or reach out to us for any assistance therein. All right, so I'll jump into my .180 server here. This one I have configured for Active Directory authentication. So I do have an Active Directory server already built here for me. Let me go take a quick little peek at it. All right, we're using port 389. There's my search base. I'm just going to test my own authentication here real briefly, just to make sure all is well. Oh, no save. I want to test that. Green. Okay, green is good. All right, so the new location for the auto user provisioning is going to be underneath the system gear settings and underneath user auth and then user accounts and groups. It's a new added field on into this user auth section here. So now we'll actually have a settings option here that will give us the option for that auto user provisioning. This page should be accessible to both, system and application administrators that are built and maintained within the Verify structure. All right, so what this will be able to do is it will, will now allow auto creation of named, user accounts and associate them to, predetermined application security groups. This concept, is new. It's configurable, with configurable functionality intended to ease and simplify, the provisioning of new user accounts by, administrators. So administrators don't have to build out 50 different 50 or more user accounts to actually able to have login access to Verify to be able to run reports, view, modified, create, and cultivate your own dashboards or any other module needs that there may be. So definitely know that this setting option is only going to illuminate for an admin style, whether it's a sysadmin or an app admin within Verify. So within my lab here, I'm using that Active Directory configuration type here. We're looking at my only one. I have an Active Directory server. There are a couple other prereqs with regards to this configuration I do want to make mention of, and we're going to run through them in a moment. But we definitely need a default user group. So whether or not we're using SAML authentication or AD, we're definitely going to need some type of default user group that the auto provision users can certainly fall into and inherit security privileges and permissions to the application. As well, also we can send email alerts to either single individuals or distro lists to make aware of new users for Verify have been provisioned. Okay, so within this user group, and I'll kind of simulate here real briefly in my lab if I can quick enough. So I have a test group. So this user group here, we'll edit this real briefly here. I do have it set to use my Verify AD server configuration. I cannot modify this configuration actually for an AD server if I had a secondary, because certainly multiple environments with different OUs and different containers definitely need to point at different directories for authentication reasons. So I cannot segue or change my Active Directory server off of this group at this time because as this warning message illuminates that it is being used for the auto user provisioning. Okay. I do see my MAT account is in there, but also at the group level, let's say, I made it pretty simplistic, just gave privileged access to this group to dashboards, call analytics, made them an administrator of the analytics, and then DN management as well. So let's just cancel out of this group real briefly. And I was testing this last night. So underneath the users in this lab that I am logged in right now with the admin account, by the way. This user, my MAT user, was provisioned last night while I was testing some things. We can certainly see that it was provisioned for the user group. It should also inherit those privileges that we just saw for analytics admin as well as direct DN management. But I kind of want to walk you through maybe just from the ground up real briefly. So I'm actually going to delete my user. I'm going to delete this user group. It won't let me. I'm going to turn off the provisioning, excuse me. We'll save that. Now I'll actually get rid of my user group and I'll kind of show you some of the warnings from the applications, the prereqs that are needed. Certainly the UI will illuminate them for you. Okay, so now back to users. So this lab environment is a complete shell as far as users are concerned. There's only the admin account that I have access to. There is an Active Directory server that is still set up. And actually, let's actually get rid of that too. Maybe I'll just cheat here real quickly. Throw that on my clipboard. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of this Active Directory server. I can get rid of it now that it's not now that the auto provisioning is turned off. Let me head back to user accounts and groups. Make sure I have everything turned off. I do. Okay, very well. Okay, so this would be blank, for instance, if you do not have any SAML or AD authentication set up in your environment or user groups. So certainly this could be kind of from the ground up. So first thing we see right here, the hover over, at least one user group must be enabled first before we can enable the user provisioning. So let's go ahead and just kind of mimic exactly what we saw that I just had. I will create a user group. I will call it test group. I love breadcrumbs. We're going to want to use Active Directory. However, I do not have an Active Directory server just yet. So I'll build one of those momentarily as well. I'm not going to make it myself or my user account or this group, excuse me, an administrator. We'll just make it, give it the same similar privileges. I'll specify one of my lab UCM clusters, just give it some analytics, maybe DM management as I did previously, make it an admin analytics, and let's go ahead and save that. Okay, now at least I have a group. So, but I need some authentication. So I need either SAML on SSO or I need an Active Directory configuration. This lab, I'm going to entertain AD. So let's go ahead and recreate this. Numlock, of course, is turned off when I need it not to be. Let's just replicate this. Oh, that was backwards. Oh, there they are. There are my breadcrumbs. There they are. Okay, very well. Go ahead and save this. Same configuration I just had, but I'm just kind of ground up building this out for us. Just test that to make sure my authentication is still good. Yes, it is. Okay, very well. So now I have an Active Directory server. I can segue now back to my user accounts and groups. And on that test group that I have, once again, I have no users in here. Your system certainly probably has a few groups, maybe in a handful of users, but I'm just kind of sampling here from the ground up. This test group we're just reevaluating and modifying. So now that I have an Active Directory server I can specify, now I can use that toggle. So now this will be a group utilized for Active Directory authentication on that AD server, inheriting these privileges of dashboard and this cluster and these few modules and permissions. Okay, go ahead and save that. Now I should have some access to go ahead into the settings option now for the user provisioning and be able to turn this toggle on. Okay, good. I do not have SAML turned on in this lab. So this will tell me right off the bat here that there's no SAML configuration found. If I wanted to navigate into the single sign-on page, which would pretty much just redirect me right into here, it'll certainly take me there. But in this example, we will be using AD. I only have one Active Directory server at the moment. Certainly you could have multiples, but on the auto user provisioning, it has to be locked into one. It cannot be more than one. Now I need a default group. It has to have a default bucket for everyone to fall into and inherit those rights. So we'll give the test group that we've previously had. I love the alerting on the auto provisioning. That is so key, so that admins can certainly know when users are being provisioned, whether it's a lot at one time, whether it's bits onesie twosies here or there. Certainly being able to be informed about that is ideal. So I'll leave this on. I have the relay set up to send to myself, so that's fine here. So let's go ahead and save that. So now that I'm completely flushed out, meaning my user, my MAT user, so we only have the admin account, but we have all the auto user provisioning set up. So I'm just going to grab a different browser style so that Chrome doesn't cache problem on me. So I'm just going to simply hit the, excuse me, I'm going to browse to the front door of my lab environment here on this 180 on 8443. And it should recognize my Active Directory account once it presents me the login prompt. Once it presents me the login prompt. Oh, I suppose it would help if I typed this out properly. Where did that IP address come from? Oh, my numlock, that's why. Pardon me. Away for 1 second. Should be able to hit that. There we are. It recognizes me because I've simulated this quite a few times, but I'm not in this lab's user list yet. So this is these are my AD credentials right here. I am going to sign in. You will notice in a moment, my login access is certainly going to differ from my fully blown admin access with all modules. I should only have, I think, dashboards, analytics, and DN management, which is correct. Here we go. And it drops me directly into the history section, just like all normal new users get dropped into, and they can there and specify their own landing pages. Okay. So that tests the functionality there of that Active Directory auto provisioning, excuse me. So I should be able to update from the admin perspective the user accounts and groups and be able to see now the auto added map that has been provisioned into that security group. And bam, here we are. Here's Matt. He's been auto provisioned on 9/29 at roughly 1:17 Central to the test group. Okay, very well. And even in my Firefox browser, we saw that's exactly what I have access to. What was provisioned on that user group here, which were these 3 modules. Okay. All right, so that covers the Active Directory portion, I suppose. So I'm actually going to take our eyes now over to the SAML configuration for another lab I have over there. So I'm borrowing one of my colleagues' labs here. So I'm going to try not to. I'm not going to go through the full bottom up like I did on the previous one because that's my lab. I don't like to modify other labs, but we're certainly going to use this as a use case point for the SAML authentication. Okay. So different modules and different rules in this lab here. This is just purely for the auto provisioning kind of demonstration here, but I'm going to take our eyes to the same locations. This being different lab and this one using the SAML, I'm just going to take your eyes past the single sign-on configuration that this lab environment's using and will be using for the auto provisioning. So we don't need to run through all of the SAML configuration like I mentioned, but there is an active SAML configuration that we can utilize for auto provisioning in this environment. So certainly your basic SAML configs, we're using Google SAML. Certainly you can look at our webinars and knowledge base articles on that configuration. We will take our eyes over to user accounts and groups, to the settings option, the new settings option here, 12.3, due out tomorrow. Okay, so in this lab here, so same rules apply here, but this one we're now using SAML authentication, as I had mentioned. We just looked at that SAML configuration. We know their one is valid, so we shouldn't get any warning messages. We do have a user group that is provisioned, so let's go take a quick peek at that. And that user group is right here. I can take a quick look at this. Also do notice that since this is actually the default user group for the auto provisioning on this SAML system here, this garbage can to delete is invalid. So it lets you know that you cannot delete it because it is part of the auto user provisioning default bucket. But now this group here is probably using something similar on a different style of cluster. Looks like there's a handful of us in there already. Oh, including Mr. Sheldon's. Oh, very well. I'm going to take a look and see when you were auto provisioned. And then some privileges, some permissions to a cluster level. Okay, very well. What I will do then, since I'm in this bucket, I'm going to actually remove myself and then synthesize kind of the re-auto administering of that. And yeah, there's Jim, and there's Jim about a few minutes ago. Very nice, Jim. Okay, I'll delete myself and leave everything alone. But since I'm not trusting the Chrome browser cache, I'm going to grab Firefox again here. We'll use this other browser tab here. HTTPS. Whack, whack. There should be 10, 20, 30. I think it's the 146. I should be able to browse directly to this. And here's the difference then with SAML. SAML obviously more secure, but definitely it's going to need a little extra authentication for the authorization. So I'll need to enter, for first time usage, certainly enter in my Google account to synthesize with the SAML authentication. And of course, now it's going to go to my cell phone. Excuse me. Yes, it is me. And then no login prompt. That was a login prompt by the provider, the IDP. And that will walk us right into the Variphy application and will give us the user provision modules that were assigned to the group, which were dashboards and I believe Cube Analytics, but I don't think that Cube database is set up. So that's why this is really what it's just kind of referencing here. But we can certainly see the pared down provisioning. So it has inherited a group's level of permissions. I'll provide them right into the application. That should then also be cached in the user groups. So let's just go. Oh, I'm in here already. Do I need to refresh this? Let's take a peek. Nope, Matt is back. Matt is back 11:20 as of 2 minutes ago. So I was certainly auto provisioned. And I mean, definitely, administrators after being alerted of users being provisioned can certainly elevate rights for certain users if they want to pull them out of that group, make them just so general user with that still the same authentication functionality, but with maybe higher elevated rights that maybe some of the, other users in the group do not need. Do want to make quick little reference here of while I've been kind of adding these, and of course, there they are. Okay, so as I've been running through this, just to make you aware, I'm getting these provisioned alerts. So let me just pull my inbox over here real briefly. So as we've been walking through this, I did see here that that Jim, J. Schultz, was auto-provisioned in that SAML lab. And then myself, I have Colleen sending me messages coming from my lab. So here's me being notified on my 80 authentication for my personal .180 lab that have been auto user provision. So nice for individuals or administrators to be able to see those notifications when they're apparent. And then from there, we can certainly talk about what other provisions may need to be utilized for the user groups. Certainly, do we want to make, as I just said, do we want to make elevated rights for those users? Do I want to pull myself out or give myself elevated rights from an admin perspective? Certainly, the administrators will be able to do such. And and the email alerts I think are fantastic because that's just letting you know that someone is trying to get into your call accounting system. Obviously if that's someone you don't know, you definitely want to make sure that you know who's trying to rap on the front door and get access into the system. So I'll just briefly pull this over here and then I will wrap. But I have all this information I kind of ran through today. I do have a knowledge base article that I am cultivating right now that will be published publicly come tomorrow during the release of the 12.3 GA. So please do know that all this information is here, even including all the configurables that you've seen in the recent webinars for the upcoming benefits and product enhancements for the 12.3. So Cube, all the UCCX good features, the high availability support, the ring no answer disposition, a lot of good stuff coming in the release due out tomorrow. But this was just to wrap on the auto user provisioning. So I believe that's all the content I have for this week. So Jim, do we have any contestants on the Q&A panel that propose any questions for us?
Yes, we actually did. And yes, I was paying attention to your demo. That's why I logged in.
Thank you. Thank you. What do you got for me?
A couple questions here. Semi asks, what are some of the common types of user groups or common user roles that get Verify accounts?
Great question, Simi.
Yep.
Yeah, great question. And let me just kind of create a new one to play with that one. With the user groups, I mean, some of the samples, you can certainly have an admin group, whether it's a sysadmin level group that your IT admins have access to everything within the Verify suite, or just want to maybe have it as an application administrator. Those are some kind of administrative level buckets, let's say. But definitely there's user level buckets that you could provision. So depending on what modules that you've procured through your Verify licensing, maybe you, let me scroll down. So with all the modules built out for, say, a call manager cluster for CUCM, I have all my bells and whistles and modules turned on. Maybe you do as well. So for instance, maybe you don't want the users to have access to remote phone control and macros and broadcasts so that they can't tap into send anything to the devices or tap into any of the remote functionality therein. Maybe you don't want them to be able to view the audit and the change management stuff. So maybe they don't need comparison snapshots and the log analysis. So those are the kind of user group kind of methodology that we have that we can very easily pare down. And even from the analytics perspective, I know my example was very high level, looking at call analytics and then giving it admin privileges, which will be everything within the analytics. But you can also even make these more finite. You can give user groups just access to certain reporting or certain visibility, or even restrict that visibility. Maybe you only want them to be able to see people in their own department, or view from a manager level their subordinates or themselves. Or do you only want to specify certain reports they can see, or can they see everything? So I mean, there's definitely a lot of bits and pieces for user restrictions or user groups that can be simulated and modified from here and cultivated for you. Great question.
Awesome. Thank you.
Great questions.
Yeah. I do have another question here from Marcus.
Please.
Can it also copy an existing user as a group permission template? So,
can you repeat that one more time?
Can it also copy an existing user as a group permission template? So maybe
if the existing user is already in the bucket in the user list, whether it's Active Directory or if it's SAML, depending on authentication, if they're already in the listing, it wouldn't give them group ownership. But definitely, if we needed to remove someone to auto inherit something, we could look at that. But maybe it would be easier to maybe secondarily or individually add the user over to the group. Which certainly, once users are created, you can certainly go into the groups and add additional users if I needed to. So you could certainly add in maybe Victor if I wanted to. I do want to make one mention. I did kind of skip over this, and I did have it highlighted and forgot to mention. When creating kind of the user groups and default groups and stuff like that, I tend to recommend people to stay away from putting the admin into a group, just in case there's lower levels of security permissions that the group is going to have. We don't want the admin account to be locked out. Don't get me wrong, it wouldn't ruin everything. We could certainly decode it and default it for you, but just as a tip, don't put the admin in a default user group.
Yep. Great.
Great.
Awesome.
Great question.
One last question from Tim.
Sure.
Is there a limit on the number of user groups assigned?
Good question. Let's see. I test that last night as well. No, we can have more than one, and that's actually, I think, why Daniel's got two here as well. No, you can certainly have more than one default bucket that the users can fall into. So you could certainly have, whether it was Active Directory, you could also have multiple AD servers that we're pointing at for different groups. Maybe it's not be the default one, but as far as the provisioning for those user groups, definitely we can have more than one. And it's still blinking here, so that tells me I can even have more than two.
There you go. All right, that is all. Actually, a couple more popped in here.
Oh, okay.
Tom wants to know, for the auto user provisioning, is there an option to filter who gets provisioned besides the search space setting on the Active Directory server, like by security group or LDAP filter?
That is a great question, Tom. And yes, and that functionality is certainly there. And that would just come down to, how you, the configuration on your AD specs or on your AD server configuration. Now, whether or not you're searching something, wide open for the whole DC, or whether or not you're specifying a search base for specific OUs that you only want to give users permissions to. But yes, most certainly that is a benefit to have to utilize within the search bases in the AD setup. Great question.
Awesome. That should do it, looks like.
All right, I will stop sharing and let you take the ball back.
Screen here. All right. Done with Q&A. So I did want to, before we get to the winner today, I'd like to remind you to join our new online community, Planet Verify. It's a great place to connect with your peers, expand and share your knowledge, and best of all, earn points towards rewards. You can use your verify.com login credentials to gain access. Feel free to reach out to your account manager or your favorite SE if you need assistance. All right.
Drum roll. Drum roll.
Thank you. Go ahead. What we've been waiting for. Time to award the winner this week, and the winner is Justin Williams. Congratulations, Woo. Justin.
Congratulations.
We will have your account manager reach out to you very shortly. All right. Thank you all for attending this week's webinar. Join us next week as Vic and Mike take us through upgrading older versions of MySQL to the latest MySQL 8.0. Have a great rest of your day, everyone. Enjoy. Thank you.
Take care, all. Thank you, everyone.